Empaths who cut off old friends, it's not what you think. You did not cut them off because you stopped caring. You cut them off because you finally noticed what your care was costing you. Here is the single moment that reveals whether the friendship was ever mutual, and it is not the big argument people assume. Picture your phone lighting up after midnight. You are half asleep and their name appears with a message that says, "Are you awake?" Your chest tightens before you even read the next line. That is your first clue, because your body already knows the pattern. Here's the moment that tells you everything. You respond with one honest sentence, and you watch what happens to the warmth. For example, you write, "I can talk tomorrow. I need sleep." If the reply is respectful, you have a friend. If the reply turns cold, guilty, mocking, or disappears, you have a role you are hired to play. That is the payoff to the loop. You are not cutting off a person. You are quitting a position. Now notice how it usually starts, quietly. You meet for coffee. They talk for 10 minutes without taking a breath. Their boss, their partner, their stress. You listen, nod, ask questions, and you mean it. Then you share one small thing about your week. They glance at their phone and say, "Yeah, anyway, listen to this." You smile to keep the mood easy. On the drive home, your jaw aches from holding back what you wanted to say. That is not drama. That is your nervous system keeping a record. Pattern interrupt. What if your sensitivity is not the reason you lose friends? What if your sensitivity is the reason you finally see the truth? Another scene. You do not reply for 2 hours because you are working or resting. They send, "Hello?" Then, "Wow, okay." Then, "Guess I know where I stand." Your stomach drops, and you start typing a paragraph to prove you still care. That urge to explain is not love. It is fear of the emotional punishment that follows your boundary. Here is what many people miss. A lot of friendships are built on regulation, not relationship. One person vents, one person soothes, one person jokes so nobody has to feel. One person absorbs the tension so the room stays comfortable. If you are empathic, you often become the absorber. So when you heal, you stop absorbing. And when you stop absorbing, the friendship changes shape. A micro scene you might recognize. They make a joke at your expense in a group. You laugh because everyone laughs. Later you text, "That landed badly for me." They reply, "Relax, it's a joke." Or worse, "You are too sensitive lately." Now your honesty is treated like a flaw. So you learn to stay shallow to stay included. Pattern interrupt. If someone can only enjoy you when you are edited, that is not closeness, it is control. Another scene. You share good news. You say, "I got an opportunity." They answer, "Nice." Then they immediately send a long voice note about their crisis. Your joy collapses into caretaking so fast, you barely notice the switch. Afterward, you feel empty, then guilty for feeling empty. That guilt is part of the trap. It keeps you donating your attention while calling it loyalty. Another scene, quieter but sharper. You mention you have been tired. They respond, "You always overthink." You try again, gently, "I just need a little support." They sigh and say, "Can we not do this right now?" You stare at the wall after the call ends. Your shoulders are up near your ears. You realize you are not allowed to be human unless you stay pleasant. That is how empathy gets used against you. Now watch what happens when you say no. They invite you out. You reply, "I can't tonight." They answer, "Fine." One word, cold. The next day photos appear of everyone together. No message, no check-in, just a silent lesson. The lesson is, access depends on compliance. That is why many empaths disappear quietly, not to punish, to stop the training. Here's the second loop. There is a hidden reason you cut off old friends that has nothing to do with them being evil, and it is the reason the guilt hits you at night. We will come back to it. First, look at the tiny moments that add up. You start noticing you feel smaller after every call. You replay conversations, searching for the line where you should have been softer. You hesitate to share your real mood because you know it will be labeled heavy. Well, you feel relief when plans get canceled, then shame for feeling relief. Relief is your body telling the truth. Your mind keeps negotiating. Pattern interrupt. Sometimes you do not miss the person. You miss the version of you who believed it would get better if you tried harder. A scene about usefulness. You stop texting first for a week. Silence. Send this one sentence, exactly as written, to the friend you're unsure about. I care about you, and I need this friendship to feel mutual and respectful. Then follow this behavioral rule for 14 days. Do not chase after you send it. No extra paragraph, no follow-up, no apologizing for having needs. Let their response reveal their capacity. Here is what respect sounds like. I hear you. Tell me what you need. Here is what control sounds like. Why are you making this so serious? Or, you have changed. Or, so now I'm a bad friend. Notice how those lines shift the focus away from your need and toward your tone. They train you to retract your boundary to restore warmth. Pattern interrupt. Warmth that depends on your self-erasure is not warmth. It is leverage. Another micro scene. You take a day for yourself. They post a vague quote about fake friends, or they tell someone you disappeared. Suddenly your silence becomes a crime, and you feel the old urge to prove you are good. That urge is the hook, because the friendship is maintained by your need to be seen as kind. Now we hit the high-stakes pivot. Sometimes the friend you cut off is not cruel. They are simply attached to the version of you that made them comfortable. You were the one who listened, the one who never said no, the one who laughed at everything. So when you start healing, you become unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels like threat to someone who uses closeness to avoid their own pain. If this is you, check this quickly. You rehearse what to say before you see them. You feel anxious when their name appears. You avoid sharing wins because they get minimized. You avoid sharing pain because it gets dismissed. You feel responsible for keeping the vibe light. You feel relief when plans get canceled. If several of these are true, your body has already voted. Now we pay off the second loop. The hidden reason you cut them off is grief for your own self-abandonment. You are grieving the years you spent shrinking to stay liked. You are grieving the jokes you laughed at while feeling hurt. You are grieving the nights you stayed on the phone when you needed sleep. You are grieving the way you learned to trade authenticity for belonging. When you finally stop, it can look sudden from the outside. Inside, it is the end of a long negotiation. One day, the guilt stops working. One day, nostalgia stops convincing you. One day, your body says, enough. That is not cruelty. That is maturation. Now, a clean test for reconnection, because sometimes people do grow. If you consider reopening contact, you send one line. I am open to reconnecting slowly, and I need respect for my pace. Then you watch whether they can tolerate slow. A safe friend can. An unsafe pattern pushes. Come on. Just meet. It's not that deep. Pressure is the old arrangement trying to return. A final micro scene. You meet them again, and within 5 minutes they say, you used to be fun. Your stomach drops, because you hear the demand behind it. Return to the role. You can answer